Hi, Acadiana. I'm meteorologist Dave Baker. It is Sunday. This is a special edition of a winter weather update as a winter weather event seems to be unfolding and will be affecting Acadiana. And it looks like we're going to see some decent amounts of snow. All the forecasts are still pointing toward generally snow with a little bit of sleet maybe mixed in some cases. But we could see some significant accumulations not seen in a very, very long time here in South Louisiana. The cold air is already starting to filter in. Most of the temperatures across Acadiana have run in the 30s and 40s, and we've even got a lot of sunshine, but that cold air is continuing to slide off toward the south. So temperatures, even with mostly sunny skies, really aren't going to be recovering a whole lot over the course of the day today. And we are expecting temperatures to plummet into the 20s tonight and probably only reach the upper 30s to around 40 tomorrow. So that's really going to chill things down. So once the winter precip starts as we go into Tuesday, there's going to be a better chance for that sticking to take place right away as the system starts because everything will have a chance to chill down. Now, we still have a winter storm watch that's in effect. This is from the National Weather Service over in Lake Charles. And we are going to be seeing these storm accumulations coming in. That is going to be affecting travel. Obviously, that's also going to be affecting the possibility of we could see some power outages out there. And it is going to be very, very cold at the same time. Some of these temperatures are going to be in the hard freeze category, and they're going to be staying there for a number of hours on an extended period of time. So the National Weather Service in Lake Charles, this is the latest accumulation forecast they have. And I can tell you, in all the years that I've been here along the Gulf Coast, this is really something that I never expected to see coming from the official sources over the National Weather Service. They're usually a little bit more conservative maybe, but still, with all of the models pointing in this direction, looks like most are buying into a good 4 to 6 inch snowfall across most of the region with maybe 2 to 3 all the way down toward the coast. But there could be significantly higher totals because we're going to be seeing some of those bursts of heavy snow. You think if you get rain that comes across Acadiana, sometimes one part of town might get an inch of rain while the other part of town might only get a quarter of an inch. So you are going to be seeing some variations in some of those snowfall totals. So it could be lower, it could be considerably higher, and it all depends on where some of that heavy bursting snow wants to sit over one area maybe for an extended period of time. And you could definitely get some additional snowfall totals than what we're seeing here. So again, the puzzle pieces are all starting to come together, and we've already got all the cold air that is starting to spill southward here across the United States, all the way down toward the Gulf Coast as high pressure builds in from Canada. And that cold air is actually coming in all the way from the North Pole, over the North Pole actually, and then just going to continue to shift off its way off toward the south. And it's really making a beeline for much of the eastern half of the country, including for us here in South Louisiana. So yesterday we were in the 70s. Today we'll be lucky if we get out of the mid 40s. And then as we get into Tuesday morning, when this event is supposed to be starting, we're going to be seeing temperatures generally in the 20s area wide all the way to the surface. And I'm going to show you some of the sounding forecasts that show the different temperatures as you go up from the ground up higher in the atmosphere. And sometimes if you get a little bit of a warm layer there, it can change your precip up. But most of our soundings are looking pretty solidly below freezing, which would indicate generally a snow pattern. So here's your upper level pattern. Of course, you've all heard about the polar vortex, and that is kind of being dislodged from the North Pole. It's way up here. And with that trough in place, of course, that's allowing all that cold air to just kind of slide off toward the southeast, right toward Texas, Louisiana, and much of the Gulf Coast. And then as we go into Tuesday, that trough is going to be digging pretty far to the south. And as it does, it's just going to kind of wind things up here. And that's going to get our little low pressure area going right here off the Texas Gulf Coast. Now the low will develop. And again, if it comes a little bit closer to Louisiana, it might affect those temperatures and could affect some of the precip. If it goes too far to the south, then more of the precip is going to go out into the middle part of the Gulf of Mexico, and we would have less accumulation. But the forecast right now kind of has it pushing just offshore, pushing off toward the east. And if it does, I think we'll have the cold air in place and then the significant amount of moisture to go along with it. And that would indicate the possibility of some decent snows, at least snows that most of us have never seen here in Louisiana. So let's go through the global models. I'm going to go a little quicker through them this time around because we're just going to look at the last three. This is the one that ran overnight, and you can see generally we're talking about mostly snow across Acadiana. And the GFS, even though this is a longer range model and it's one of the first ones that we're able to kind of see a winter system developing several days ago, the GFS is a lower resolution. It also just, every one of these little frames that you're seeing here is every 6 hours. So you do miss some things that are in between. But as a general consensus, the last three models have been indicating we're going to be seeing snow across the region. And I will say the snow totals have backed off just a little bit, but they're still within range of what the National Weather Service is talking about in that 4 to 6 inch range. And you can see there across the Gulf Coast and then stretching along the I-10 corridor, pushing over toward Baton Rouge. For the most part, you're looking at about 5, 6, perhaps up to 7 inches of snow. And there's the sounding. And again, if you're not familiar with what this is, this would be, let's say if you launched a weather balloon on Tuesday morning, this is what the GFS model thinks the weather balloon would see. And down at the surface, the temperature would be 29 degrees. Here is your 0 degree line, and it's this dotted line right there. So everything off toward the left would be below freezing. So you can see this entire column of air from the ground going up into the higher parts of the atmosphere. Not only is it below freezing, but it's also saturated. So the red line is your temperature and the green line is your dew point. And the closer those two are together, the higher your humidity is. So it's basically saturated all the way through this part. There is a little bit of a dryness right there at the surface, a little bit closer to the surface, which might mess a little bit with some of the precipitation. But because that column of air is all going to be below freezing, we think it's going to be generally all snow. Euro yesterday, and again, the Euro gives us these, each one of these frames is 3 hours, so you do get a little more information. It's also a little bit more high resolution than the GFS, and you can see yesterday it was indicating some pockets of snow, and then the run that ran overnight last night, again, not much of a change, but there is some significant hefty snowfalls there. And then even the one that ran this morning is still indicating some decent snowfall at times. But again, with the Euro model, what's better than the GFS is each one of these frames is every 3 hours. So you see a little bit more of the storm in detail. And the Euro is still putting down very close to the GFS. Maybe the heavier snow's a little bit farther to the north than the GFS, because we're kind of splitting hairs now on who's going to get the most and who's going to get the least and whatever. But the general consensus is still there in that 5 to 7 inch range, which is very close to what the National Weather Service's official forecast is showing as well. And then when you look at the Euro sounding, this is also an indication of generally all snow. Look how the bottom part of this is all saturated as you've got the red and the green line on top of each other. That means your temperature and your dew point are the same, and when they're the same, your humidity is 100%. So you can't add any more moisture to the atmosphere. The farther apart those lines are, like what you see up here at the top, the air mass starts to get a little bit drier. But there's your 0 degree line. That line goes up like that. So everything off toward the left of that particular line is below freezing. So since the entire column of air there, where all that moisture is going to be, will be below 32 degrees, we are expecting this to be a snow event according to the Euro. Just for fun, let's go ahead and look at the North American model. And what I like about this one is, you know, you have the GFS, each one of the frames were 6 hours. The Euro, each one is 3. This one, you get a frame every hour, and you do start to get more higher resolution, and it kind of shows those isolated pockets of heavy snow. Do you see that? Across much of Acadiana. It also does indicate a little bit of a mixed bag to start things off, especially along the coast very early Tuesday morning. And then through the day on Tuesday, you can see the precip continues to move in, and the NAM also is showing a saturated air mass in the lower parts of the atmosphere and everything again below the freezing point, which would indicate snow. And there is your North American model's forecast snowfall, somewhere 8-9 inches of snow, so it is a little bit heavier than what the GFS and the Euro, and it's also slightly heavier than what we're seeing with the official forecast from the National Weather Service. But a good widespread area of snow is likely for the entire region. And just for fun, there's the Canadian. Hasn't changed a whole lot yesterday. Still significant snow. Bullseye right there over the Acadiana region. And even the icon that really kind of backed off on the amounts of snowfall forecast yesterday and the day before is coming back on board, and again now is within range of the official National Weather Service's forecast of somewhere about 4 to 6 inches of snow. So at this point in time, I believe from where I read, we're 80 to 90% that all of Acadiana will see at least 1 inch of snow, at least enough snow to cover the ground. And of course, with all of the other models and what we're seeing right now, and of course we'll fine tune, and you'll start to get a little bit more on the who's going to get the most, who's going to get the least, who might end up with a mixed bag of precipitation. Those are going to be fine tuned as some of those higher resolution forecasts that only go out 48 hours, because we're now starting to get within the window of that 48-hour period, because we think some of the precipitation is going to be starting in southeast Texas late Monday, and then in southwestern Louisiana as we get into the very early morning hours of Tuesday. So it is kind of exciting, I do have to say, but you also have to beware that our temperatures are going to be very, very cold, only reaching the 20s probably for most of the day on Tuesday. So today, if you've got some outdoor prep stuff to do, if you're going to be wrapping some pipes or you need to move plants and things like that, if you're doing that outside, bundle up, because it's going to be cold, but it's actually going to be a pretty decent day out there, and you still have enough time to do winter weather preps as we go into Monday, just kind of wrapping up those last minute things before the precipitation starts in. And of course, traveling is not recommended as we go into early Tuesday morning, because the roadways are going to be slick, and probably some of this is going to melt on contact on some of the roads, but then it's going to freeze fairly quickly, because we're going to be seeing those temperatures at or below freezing for the duration of most of this event. So traveling is going to be an issue. Also, because some of the snowfall is going to be on the heavy side, and we have a considerable amount of foliage on our trees that we have here in South Louisiana, different than what you see in the middle part of the country. So it can catch a lot of that snow. Now, fortunately, the snow is not quite as heavy as if we were going to get ice accumulation, but there's going to be enough, and especially if you start getting into these 4, 5, 6, 7, 8-inch snowfall totals, that snow is going to be a very heavy, wet snow, and it can pull down branches. And if you get branches falling, they can hit power lines. So I would be prepared for some sporadic power outages here and there. And then, of course, you need to really prepare for the cold. So this is what you need to be doing for today. Protect the plants. Hopefully you've already got those in. They're not going to survive tonight. If you had them out last night, they might be okay, but if you get them in tonight, you'll be in good shape. Pipes, they need to be wrapped by today, because I think just about everybody's going to be dropping down into the 20s. And if you live north of I-10, it's probably more, you really do need to do it there, as the temperatures are not only going to be dropping down into the low to mid 20s, but also the duration of the freezing temperatures will last more than 12 hours. Of course, pets and people, make sure your pets are inside. If they are not inside pets, make sure they do have some warm shelter, and also make sure that their food and water doesn't freeze. And then make sure you're checking in on your neighbors, prepare for those power outages, and also check on the elderly and other folks that might live alone to make sure that they're okay and they're protected from the cold. So again, it is going to be kind of an exciting thing. I know that there's a lot of folks that in the past, when we talk about major weather events, we're always wishing and praying that they'll go somewhere else. But I do kind of get the feeling from most folks that I've talked to here in South Louisiana, for this particular thing, you're almost wishing and praying that it is going to be hitting us directly on, because it's something so unusual and could be just something so unique that nobody alive that has lived here in South Louisiana has ever seen before in their life. So it could be something historic, and hopefully everybody's safe and we can just enjoy this and some togetherness here for the next several days as we're kind of locked in, because we're not going to be going anywhere. Well, I hope you enjoy these winter weather updates. If you do, please like this video and subscribe to my channel, and also turn on those notifications, and make sure you tell your friends too. I do have my social media pages links down in the description below. If you want to follow those, you'll get some more frequent updates, especially as we get closer to the event on Tuesday. I will have another update with the newer models this afternoon. I'll put that on social media, and then you'll want to join me tomorrow morning for Acadiana Weather Today. That's my daily show that runs every day at about 7 o'clock in the morning on weekdays. And then probably we'll have another winter weather update coming up on Monday afternoon. And then we'll get more involved and probably more frequent updates as we get into the event itself. I'm meteorologist Dave Baker. Enjoy the rest of your Sunday and stay warm, and I will talk to you next week.